The forbidden signal captain, Marcus Holloway, gripped the command chair of the exploration vessel Defiant Dawn as warning lights bathed the bridge in crimson. The ship's systems screamed alerts about the massive structure looming before them through the viewport. It wasn't a ship or station, but something far more organic and terrifying. "Sir, we're detecting massive energy signatures," reported Lieutenant Zoe Matthews from her scanning station. Her voice carried the tension they all felt. "The readings are unlike anything in our databases." The structure before them pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, stretching for kilometers in every direction. It resembled a massive flower made of crystalline petals, each one larger than Earth's largest cities. At its center, something that looked like a beating heart of pure energy cast dancing shadows across the Defiant Dawn's hull. "Communications are coming through on all frequencies," announced Ensign Tommy Rodriguez from the communications array. "But it's not language as we know it. The patterns suggest direct neural transmission." Marcus had received his orders 3 days ago. The Terran Colonial Authority wanted him to investigate the anomaly that had appeared in the Kepler 442 system. What they hadn't told him was that 17 previous expeditions had vanished without a trace after encountering similar structures throughout the galaxy. He'd learned that detail from his old friend Admiral Patricia Voss, who'd pulled him aside before departure. Her words echoed in his mind now. "Every captain who's tried to make contact has disappeared. Some say the entity at the center feeds on curiosity itself." The bridge fell silent except for the steady hum of life support systems. Through the viewport, the alien structure seemed to pulse in rhythm with Marcus's heartbeat. His crew of 43 souls looked to him for guidance, but he found himself drawn to the hypnotic patterns of light dancing across the organic surface. "Captain," whispered Navigator Jake Sterling, "we should maintain distance. The gravitational fields around that thing could tear us apart." But Marcus felt something else entirely. Where his crew saw danger, he sensed loneliness. The patterns weren't aggressive, they were almost pleading, like someone had been waiting in the darkness for far too long. "Sir, we're receiving a direct transmission," Rodriguez called out, his voice cracking slightly. "It's targeting you specifically, Captain. The neural patterns are trying to establish a connection with your mind." Marcus stood slowly, feeling the weight of command and the pull of discovery. Every regulation, every safety protocol screamed at him to retreat, but something deeper, something fundamentally human, urged him forward. "All stop," he commanded. "Maintain position, but keep engines ready for emergency jump." His first officer, Commander Beth Harrison, stepped beside him. "Marcus, whatever you're thinking, remember that we have families waiting for us back home." He nodded, understanding her concern completely. But as he stared at the alien structure, Marcus realized that some truths were worth the risk of everything. First Contact Protocol. The neural connection hit Marcus like lightning wrapped in silk. For a moment, the bridge of the Defiant Dawn faded away, replaced by something that existed beyond physical space. He found himself standing in what could only be described as a garden made of starlight, where thoughts took the form of glowing flowers and emotions flowed like streams of liquid. Music. Finally, a voice spoke directly into his consciousness, someone brave enough to listen. Before him materialized a figure that defied human understanding. She appeared as a woman composed of shifting aurora, her form constantly changing between solid matter and pure energy. Crown-like appendages of a crystalline light framed what might have been a face, and her eyes held the depth of ancient galaxies. "You're the queen they warned us about," Marcus said, surprised that he could speak in this mental realm. "I am Virulith, last of the ethereal collective. Your people call me queen, but I am merely a survivor." Her mental voice carried centuries of sadness. "I have watched your species spread across the stars with such beautiful chaos." Back on the bridge, Commander Harrison watched with growing alarm as Marcus stood motionless, his eyes glowing with the same bioluminescent patterns visible on the alien structure. Medical readings showed his brain activity spiking to dangerous levels. "Should we break the connection?" asked Dr. Nina Foster, the ship's chief medical officer. "Not yet," Harrison replied, though her hand hovered over the emergency neural dampeners. He knew the risks. In the mental realm, Marcus felt no fear, only overwhelming curiosity. "Why do ships disappear when they approach you?" Virolith's form shimmered with what might have been embarrassment. "They do not disappear. They choose to stay. I offer them knowledge beyond their wildest dreams, and they cannot resist diving deeper into the connection until their physical forms become unnecessary." "You consume them," Marcus stated flatly. "I offer transcendence. Your species calls it death, but it is evolution. However, I have grown weary of forced ascension. I desire something different." The mental garden around them shifted, showing images of human settlements, children playing, people laughing and crying and living their beautifully chaotic lives. "I want to understand what you call living instead of merely existing." Marcus felt the pull she described, the temptation to abandon his physical form and merge with something greater. But his humanity anchored him, thoughts of his crew, his daughter back on Earth, the simple pleasure of morning coffee on the observation deck. "What do you want from me?" he asked. "Teach me to be mortal again. I have existed for millennia as pure consciousness, but I have forgotten what it means to feel limited, to treasure moments because they are finite." The request was so unexpected that Marcus almost laughed. Here was a being of unimaginable power asking him to teach her humanity. And in exchange, "I will share the knowledge of 1,000 civilizations, technologies that could elevate your species beyond imagination. But more importantly, I will stop inadvertently destroying those who seek to know me." Back on the bridge, the crew watched as their captain's vital signs stabilized. Whatever was happening in that mental connection, he was holding his own against forces beyond their comprehension. Marcus made his decision with the kind of reckless courage that had defined humanity's expansion into the stars. "The Queen's Gambit. I accept your offer," Marcus said in the mental realm. "But I have conditions." Virolith's aurora form rippled with surprise. "You would negotiate with a being who could erase your existence with a thought?" "That's exactly why. I'm negotiating," Marcus replied with a grin that somehow translated across dimensions. "Humans don't surrender, we adapt. If you want to learn mortality, you need to understand that mortals don't kneel to power, they bargain with it." The mental garden around them shifted, revealing glimpses of Virolith's past. Marcus saw her species, the ethereal collective in their prime, beings of pure thought who had transcended physical existence eons ago. They had been explorers of consciousness itself, mapping the universe's mental dimensions until they forgot their own origins. "Show me," Virolith requested. "Show me what it means to be human." Marcus closed his eyes and opened his memories. He shared the feeling of his daughter's first steps, the taste of victory after Earth's first successful faster-than-light journey, the grief of losing his wife to cosmic radiation during the Centauri expedition. He showed her fear, love, anger, hope, all the messy, contradictory emotions that made humanity so unpredictable. "Fascinating," Virolith whispered. "You feel everything so intensely, yet continue forward despite knowing your time is limited. That's what makes it precious," Marcus explained. "Because it ends." On the bridge, Dr. Foster monitored the neural connection with growing amazement. His brain patterns are stabilizing. Whatever's happening, he's not being consumed like the others. Commander Harrison studied the alien structure through the viewports. The pulsing had changed, becoming more rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. "Is it just me, or does that thing look less threatening?" Engineer Carlos Mendez looked up from his readings. "The energy signatures are definitely shifting. It's like the structure is becoming more Docile. In the mental realm, Viroleth made a decision that would change everything. I will attempt, something I have not done in millennia. I will create a physical form and experience your reality directly. Wait, Marcus said quickly. That could be dangerous. If you're used to existing as pure consciousness, a physical body might be overwhelming. This is what you call taking a risk, is it not? Very human. The mental garden began to dissolve as Viroleth concentrated. Marcus felt himself being drawn back to his physical body, the connection gently severing as the alien queen prepared for her transformation. On the bridge, Marcus gasped and stumbled backward, his eyes returning to normal. "Report," he said shakily. "Sir, the alien structure is changing," Matthews called out. "Mass displacement readings are off the charts." Through the viewport, they watched as part of the massive organic structure began to condense, folding in on itself like origami made of light and matter. The process took several minutes, reality bending and reshaping itself according to laws of physics that human science barely understood. When the transformation completed, a smaller ship hovered near the defiant dawn. It was beautiful in an alien way, composed of the same crystalline materials but sized for a crew rather than a city. A docking request came through standard communications. "She's coming aboard," Marcus announced to his stunned crew. "Sir, with respect, that's insane," Harrison protested. "We don't know what she's capable of." Marcus looked at his first officer with the expression of a man who had seen impossible wonders. "Commander, we're about to make history. The first alien being to voluntarily take physical form to learn from humanity. And if it's a trap?" Marcus smiled grimly. "Then we'll die doing something no human has ever done before. Prepare the main airlock. Lessons in mortality." The airlock sealed with a soft hiss, and Marcus found himself face to face with the impossible. Viroleth had crafted herself a humanoid form, though human was a generous description. She stood 7 feet tall, her skin shifting, between translucent crystal and something that resembled liquid starlight. Her hair flowed like solar wind, and her eyes held galaxies. "This is overwhelming," she said, her voice now audible rather than telepathic. Each word seemed to cost her effort. "How do you process so many sensations simultaneously?" "Practice," Marcus replied. "Humans are good at multitasking, even when we don't want to be." Dr. Foster approached with her medical scanner, fascination overriding caution. "Her cellular structure is unlike anything I've ever seen. It's as if each cell contains its own miniature star." Viroleth looked down at her hands, flexing fingers that sparkled with contained energy. "Everything feels so immediate, so present. In my consciousness form, I could perceive all of time simultaneously. Now I understand why you value moments." "That's the point," Marcus said. "When you can't see the future, every choice matters more." They made their way to the ship's main conference room, where Marcus had assembled his senior staff. The reactions ranged from awe to barely controlled terror, but everyone maintained professional composure. "Your species interests me," Viroleth said, settling into a chair that groaned under her unusual mass. "I have observed thousands of civilizations, but none quite like yours. Most species either achieve transcendence or destroy themselves. Humans seem determined to do both simultaneously." Navigator Sterling leaned forward. "What happened to your people? The ethereal collective?" Viroleth's expression, something that might have been sadness, flashed across her alien features. "We became too perfect. We solved every problem, answered every question, transcended every limitation. And in doing so, we lost the very struggles that gave our existence meaning." "So you became bored gods," Marcus observed. "Worse, we became irrelevant. Without challenge, without growth, without the possibility of failure, existence becomes mere persistence." One by one, my people simply stopped. They allowed themselves to fade into the cosmic background. Engineer Mendez spoke up. But you didn't. I was the youngest when we transcended. I still remembered what it felt like to wonder, to hope, to fear. I have spent eons searching for that feeling again. Dr. Foster set down her scanner. Your physical form is incredibly unstable. The energy required to maintain it must be enormous. It is, Virileth admitted. This form will not last long, perhaps days at most. Then we need to make them count, Marcus decided. What do you want to experience first? Virileth stood and walked to the viewport, gazing out at the stars with eyes that had once commanded galaxies. I want to feel surprise. In my consciousness, form, I could calculate infinite possibilities. I want to experience not knowing what comes next. Marcus smiled. I think we can arrange that. Lieutenant Matthews, set course for the Vega system. Maximum warp. Sir? Matthews looked confused. Virileth, meet humanity's greatest teacher, uncertainty. We're going to show you what it's like to jump into the unknown and figure it out as we go. As the Defiant Dawn engaged its faster-than-light drive, Virileth gripped the viewport's frame. The stars stretched into lines of light, and for the first time in millennia, she truly didn't know what would happen next. The sensation was terrifying and wonderful, and absolutely addictive. Is this what you call adventure? She asked. This is what we call Tuesday, Marcus replied with a grin. The choice that changed everything. 3 days later, Virileth's physical form was deteriorating rapidly. Her crystalline skin had begun to flicker like a failing hologram, and each breath seemed to cost her enormous effort. The ship's medical bay had become her refuge, where Dr. Foster worked tirelessly to understand her unique physiology. I am dying, Virileth said simply, watching her hand phase between solid and translucent. This is what you call mortality. Marcus sat beside her, no longer the ship's captain, but simply a friend watching someone fade away. How does it feel? Terrifying, beautiful, urgent. Her voice had grown softer, more human. I understand now why your species fights so hard to survive. Every moment becomes precious when you know it might be your last. Over the past 3 days, Virileth had experienced wonder in its purest form. She had tasted chocolate and declared it crystallized joy. She had watched a sunrise through the observation deck and wept tears that sparkled like diamonds. She had listened to human music and felt her artificial heart synchronize with rhythms created by beings she was beginning to truly understand. I have a choice to make, she continued. I can return to my consciousness form and continue existing forever, or I can remain physical and experience a natural end. The bridge crew had gathered in the medical bay, these humans who had become unlikely teachers to a cosmic entity. Commander Harrison stepped forward. What do you want to do? I want to choose mortality, Virileth said without hesitation. But I cannot make that choice alone. It affects more than just me. She gestured weakly toward the viewport, where her massive ship still traveled alongside the Defiant Dawn. That vessel contains the accumulated knowledge of my entire civilization, technologies that could advance your species by millennia. If I die, that knowledge dies with me. Unless you share it, Dr. Foster said quietly. That is the choice, Virileth confirmed. I can transfer the knowledge to your computers, give humanity the gifts of the ethereal collective, and then allow myself to fade. But such knowledge comes with a price. Marcus felt a chill of premonition. What kind of price? Power corrupts. Unlimited knowledge removes the need for growth, for struggle, for the very qualities that make humanity special. You could become like my people, perfect, transcendent, and ultimately empty. The room fell silent as everyone processed the implications. They were being offered godhood, with all its terrible costs. Engineer Mendez was the first to speak. What? If we only take some of it? The medical knowledge, maybe some cleaner energy technologies? Knowledge cannot be parceled out safely, Virolith replied. It is all connected. Take the cure for disease, and you also receive the ability to create plagues. Accept faster-than-light communication, and you also gain the power to control minds. Across the galaxy! Marcus stood and began pacing, his mind racing through possibilities. There has to be another way. There is, Virolith said softly. You could take all the knowledge but promise to use it wisely. Trust in humanity's essential nature to remain human despite having the power of gods. That's a hell of a gamble, Harrison muttered. It is, Virolith agreed. But I have spent 3 days learning about humans, and I believe you are the only species in the galaxy capable of wielding ultimate power without losing your souls. Marcus stopped pacing and looked directly at her. What makes you so sure? Virolith smiled, an expression that had taken her 3 days to master. Because when offered the choice between power and responsibility, humans always choose the harder path. You could have destroyed me when I was vulnerable, but instead you chose to teach me. You could abandon me now to preserve your innocence, but you won't. The captain looked around at his crew, seeing the weight of decision in their eyes. They stood at a crossroads that would determine not just their fate, but the future of human civilization. All right, Marcus said finally. We'll take your knowledge, all of it, and we'll spend the rest of our lives proving that humanity can handle the responsibility. Virolith's form flickered one last time before stabilizing. Then let us begin the transfer. And Captain, thank you for teaching me what it means to be mortal. As the knowledge of an ancient civilization flowed into human databases, Virolith closed her eyes and embraced the most human experience of all. A meaningful death, surrounded by friends who would carry her legacy forward into an uncertain but hopeful future.